Okay, so let's talk about this study by Fernando. So it's a study in C major that's gonna basically explore a little bit the chords that are in C major, go to the relative minor, which is A minor in the second part, and then explore a little bit the chords around A minor, and then come back to C major for the kind of repetition of the first section. So from a structural point of view, there is an A section which is divided in two parts, from bar 1 to 8 and from bar 9 to 16, and then there is a B section that has another 16 bars, so from bar 17 to 24 and from 25 to 32. And then there is a recap, so there is da capo al fine for the A section again. So from a interpretation point of view, yes, we have the dynamics and that are written. So for example, we start with that mezzo forte, there is that crescendo up to the G, then there is a diminuendo up to the C, then there is another crescendo, and then there is another diminuendo, and so on. So there are guidelines, but what can we tell? What can we understand from just looking at the notes? And when we are when we are playing tonal music, so music that has a tonic and then that has notes and chords organized around the tonic, so basically all the other notes establish a relationship of tension with that note. So when we are in C, this is our or C major, this is our kind of stable, and it's our stable chord, this is our home base, and anything that is away from that will be perceived more or less as a tension. So our job is to connect the dots, and so we're not just playing the notes individually, but we are trying to understand how these notes relate to each other and how these notes, they create tension, they create a narrative. And it's like with words, so there is a subject that develops in a book. So we go an introduction, we go the presentation of that subject, and then there are some adventures that bring that subject away from its home, and then eventually it's gonna come back home. And a little bit something similar happens in this piece. So we start in C major, we're gonna explore other chords, we're gonna temporarily come back to C major, then move away, explore other chords, and then kind of finish there, and then come back for our return in C major, kind of revisiting our first steps. Now, after this introduction, let's kind of dive in. So we're going to look first at the first 8 bars. So in the first 8 bars we have, this is the first arrival point. So we start in C, and then we reach this F. We can just put so in bar number 2, between bar 2 and bar 3, we got this presentation of this F chord, which is made of the notes F, A, and C. The C major is made of C, E, and G, and then C again. So we have pa di da ra di da 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 dum da ra ra da ra ra. So it's like a song. The job, like what we want to do, is to kind of, aside from knowing the theory that okay, we reached the dominant, which is G, which is our 5th degree, the subdominant is F, which is our 4th degree, which we would count like C, D, E, F, and G. These are kind of how you count the degrees. So you start from your starting note and then you reach whichever is your arrival note. Aside from the theory that says okay, you get louder as you reach the dominant, and you can also just really you you can also just play the notes. So if you just play the C, and then you play the F, what does that tell you? What's the feeling when you arrive on the F? And what's the feeling if you were to go back to the C? But what if we keep going? What if after F we go to G? Again, what happens there? What does it feel? And if we do that, with the chords, what happens next? Again, it's about listening and really feeling, because our ears, our ancestors' ears have heard this progression so many times that we kind of instinctively expect something. We expect that those chords are going to move in a very specific way, in a very specific direction. And when that doesn't happen, it creates a surprise. And composers know this and exploit this to make us, listener, have a even better, sometimes, experience during either the performance or the listening of a piece. So when we have C, F, and G, if we come back to C, how does it feel? It feels as if we went kind of full circle, and the reason for this, it's also because those three chords, which are C, F, and G, I mean C major, F major, and G major, are what they are so-called the primary chords, and they're chords that when they are played in a sequence, they're basically presenting all the notes that are contained in a given scale. So if you were to just write on a piece of paper C, E, G, and then you have F, A, C, and then you have G, B, and D, and you reorganize them in an alphabetical order, you'll have the whole C major. Starting from C, you'll have the whole C major scale. And so basically what happens is that when you hear those three chords, you, like, let's say all these four chords, when you come back to C, you have a sense of where you are from a tonality point of view. So you know which is your center and what are the outer chords, so the other kind of tension points. So the F chord is going to have a tension, and then the G major chord is going to have another type of tension. Let's say from a harmony point of view, C major gives you stability, which is the tonic chord, and then F major moves you away from the tonic, so it gives a sense of moving away, but you're kind of, you don't know yet where you're going. Whereas G major, which is our dominant chord, it's gonna give us a sense of coming back. It's hinting to our ear that we're coming back to the tonic. But again, when that doesn't happen, it's a surprise, it's a deception, we've been lied to. But in this piece, it doesn't happen. And so the dynamics there are correct, in the sense of there is that crescendo, and then it kind of comes back down because we come back to C, and then it comes back down. So just to get the idea, I would just memorize the melody, da di da da di da da di da, and I would sing it with that direction, maybe also playing underneath, da di ra di ra 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 di ri ra ra di ri ra, da di da di da 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 ra di da da ra da. And then what happens? So we go to the next period, the next phrase. The first part is pretty, we have that pedal of G, so that repeated note that kind of keeps us in a way between the dominant and the tonic. It's a note that is common both to the dominant as the first note and also to the tonic as the third note, because remember, the chord of G is made of G, B, and D, and the chord of C is made of C, E, and G. Now what happens? Here we're on a G7, which resolves to to C. We go dominant, tonic, back to G, and back to C. So there we kind of alternate dominant, tonic, dominant, tonic. Then solve, because you know, it's been 8 bars plus a repetition that I told you there is a tonic, there is a subdominant, and there is a dominant, and again dominant, tonic, subdominant, and tonic, and then back to the tonic, subdominant, dominant, back to tonic. Then it's gonna basically, in that the whole point of the first 8 bar was to tell you we are in C major, and the second part is just to develop a little bit that C major by saying, just to kind of reiterate the fact that we are in C major. But then we have and what is that? And so the other chords that are in C major that are also important are the chords of D minor, and that we stop there because the only other chord from the key that we have there is D minor. Then we still have a C major in a second inversion, then back to G major, and back to C major. But before that D minor, because Sol wants to keep things a little bit spicier, we have an A7 chord. Now the A7 chord is another dominant, and is a dominant of the key of D, whether it's D major or D minor in this case, because D minor is proper of the key of C major. This A7, what it does, it just creates a bit more tension before the D minor, and then the D minor is our chord number 2, which is followed by, now from the last 4 bars of that semi-phrase will sound like this. Again, there is that sense of tension, release, the same one that we experienced when we had then we're back in C. So just to make things a little bit more interesting for the player and the listener, and always, let's say, if you see a note that has an accidental, which means it's a note that doesn't belong to the key, that is a clear indicator for a tension, usually greater than the actual tensions kind of included or that we're supposed to have in the key, in the tonality. So in that case we have a C sharp, which is like, we're in C major, C sharp, it's 2 keys, it's 2 scales farther away from, because you need to go to G major, which has an F sharp, and then D major, and so it's 2 scales that way, and then 1 scale the other way, because we have, if we go with the flats, we have F major, but then the relative minor is D minor. So with, again, it's a distant, it's a bit of a dissonant note. And so how do we play? Yes, it's nice to have the forte, because we have a kind of a tension chord there with those 2 notes. There is now the beat doesn't happen yet, but it's kind of implied there in the G, B, and F, which is, you can hear this is a dissonant interval, which sounds really nice after, sounds really nice if it's followed by that's a trident that is also a major third. So we have tension, release, tension, release. But it doesn't really release because we have that melody that plays on the offbeat, the kind of short 2.5 bars of syncopation. So we have those long notes that are played on the offbeats that kind of go over the following beat. And finally we have here, that's when kind of the piece finally settles. So this is kind of what happens in the first part. In the second part, again, because SOR needs to develop and SOR needs to kind of, you're like, when you're a student, you need to kind of practice different positions and so and so. And what it's gonna do, okay, we're in C major, very simply, we go to the relative minor, which is the A minor. Now, there it's marked piano dolce, which is it's like that. But first, let's kind of play the chords. So in that bar 17, we go an A minor chord, followed by an E7 chord. And again, if we think A minor, so A is our 1, we go A, B, C, D, E. Like it's not a case, it's not a mistake, it's not like an accident that after we have a dominant, which is in this case it's the chord of E with the D, which makes it an E7. And again we have those two notes. They want to go to those two other notes. Again we have another tritone, D sharp and D, that wants to go to A and C, and that's why the chord of E7 is the dominant chord. The dominant 7 chord is really dissonant because it contains this interval and it also contains the leading note of the scale. In this case, the leading note is D sharp, which is the leading note to A, which is our tonic. So what we have: tonic, dominant, dominant, so this is a little bit more, back to tonic. And then we have some sixth. Again, here we're hitting some chord, but we're kind of descending. Our arrival point is, and what we did before, again we have a B7 chord, really it's not a full B7, it's just a very another tritone that wants to go to, again this tritone implies that B7 chord that wants to go to E. So we're kind of, he's creating tension, so that B7 is another so-called secondary dominant. So we're in the key of A, which is our tonic, our dominant is E, and the secondary dominant, which is the dominant of the dominant, in this case, is B7, which is just presented with two notes, and then we have a B in the same bar, that's bar 21. So it could be the tension here that resolves to E. And then in the next part, again, what chords do we have? So we finished that, this is our third phrase. We finish on E, and then we start on E7, which is again, it's our dominant. For A, we're still in the context of A minor, and then the next bar, which is bar 26, the next bar is going to be A minor, so tension and release. And then again we have we got that E, the B, and the G sharp, which is kind of short for again E major or E7, followed bar 28 by another A minor chord. And then because we're kind of coming back slowly to C major, we're gonna have some of the chords of C. So this is still, this is our 2nd degree in E minor and 7th degree in C major, followed by again the dominant for A minor, F, 6th degree, and then again we have 2, 5, 1. The 2-5-1, now not really mentioned here, it's a very it's a perfect cadence, so they're one of the most used chord progressions in the history of music. So we have 2, 5, 1, same as in C major. So we got D minor, which is our 2, G7, which is our 5, and then C, which is our 1. And so because we have the alternation of dominant, tonic, and then 2, 5, 6, 2, 5, 1. The way the dynamics are marked, there is a piano that leads to the G, which is our highest note, and so there is a crescendo. Which makes sense. I mean, we also have that kind of middle voice that travels up, and so it does make sense too. And also there is that repeated E that again creates a sense of agitation and insisting and is pressing for finding a way out. And after that we go back to the start. So after this kind of 16 bars of kind of dark atmosphere, we go back to the tonic, to the major key. So yes, I think the most important thing is mapping out the chords, and then yes, knowing the theory, so knowing which one is the tonic, knowing which one is the dominant, maybe secondary dominants, so those chords that are not proper of the key but they create more tension, and how they relate to each other. But the most important thing is to listen, so it's to connect from a oral point of view the two, whether they are two notes or two chords, and to really say, okay, when I play this chord, after I play the next chord, how does it feel? Does it give me a sense of tension? And then how much? Does it give me a sense of stability, kind of rest, but how much? And then that will guide you in understanding where the piece moves and where is the general direction. Always it's important to understand, let's say, from between two bars we go tonic dominant or dominant tonic, so there is maybe a tension and release, but it's also important to have an overall view of maybe the phrase, which is maybe 8 bars, or the section, which is 16 bars, and even the piece. So maybe we have a major section of 16 bar, a minor section of 16 bars, and then again the major section. So the question that I'm going to leave you with is when the major section comes back, and it's gonna come back without the repeats, how does it feel to come back to the major section after the minor section. So this is something that I will leave you with, and enjoy.